Hey, it's Ted Schmidt. I'm back for another podcast. I've got Randy Wiegand with me again, and we're going to talk about free agency this time. I think the first thing we were going to talk about is kind of what we thought of this free agent class in general, and we both agree it was kind of weird, and you had some thoughts on that you were just kind of expressing before we started.
Yeah, I mean, it was good for if you needed like a first base DH, not good, some good bats, not great in the field with those guys, unfortunately. Like you got a guy in Moreno who, right. I mean, I don't know if you want to go into why
we'll get to that when we get to me, but I agree. I mean, there were some DHs, there were some corner outfielders, there was one elite starting pitcher, and then a bunch of kind of reclamation projects.
Sure.
I think one thing that went kind of underutilized by some teams is there were a lot of reasonable relievers. Nobody that was amazing, but guys you could get for $1 to $3 million that could probably give you some innings, and some teams took advantage of that and some didn't. But yeah, it was a weird class. Like, unless you needed a corner outfielder, a first baseman, a DH, or a back end starting pitcher, it was pretty tough to find something worthwhile in here.
Yeah, I mean, I got lucky in the sense that I never really planned to do much with this free agency, regardless of kind of who was available. I did most of my work through trades, but the only thing I needed was I just needed a backup middle infielder, and there were a few of those types available that, I mean, not great guys that you want starting for you, but you know what I mean. If you're looking for just somebody to fill in every once in a while or come in an injury pinch, you had a few of those guys available as well.
Right, and so it's like we said, kind of an interesting class. So I think we kind of decided that we're just going to kind of run through this team by team and kind of look at what people got and make some comments about that and try to keep from getting too intensely boring, and then maybe circle around to a couple ideas we thought of as we were going. So,
sure.
And you just heard my heater or my furnace kicking on, so that's
sorry, my dog will probably kick in here in a little bit too. So
yeah, that'll be nice. So I guess we just started looking at Atlantic City. As discussed previously, they in another podcast they didn't have any money at all, so
no.
they signed no one. They're up against the cap, and we're done. This could go faster than we think it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say they lost a bunch and signed literally not a single free agent.
Right. So Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Roblins also signed 0 players in free agency, and maybe we'll be done in 5 minutes.
Yeah. The difference is they had some money, they just chose to spend it all in trades.
Well, they did, but they only had $2 million under budget left, so they couldn't have gotten a whole lot in this free agency. But now we finally get to Calgary, who actually I thought made a pretty good deal here. They picked up Atsumori Maeda, and he's 35 this year, starting pitcher. He's been with them for a while, so they pretty much just kind of got their own guy back. But they paid him like 6.56, and then a player option for 6, so a 3-year deal that will take him, through when he's pretty old. But he's been kind of a league average guy, and they just got kind of a league average pitcher back who, yeah, he's old, but for $6 million a year, I mean, I thought that was pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily like the player option for the 38-year-old pitcher.
Right.
But,
yeah.
But I mean, for the money, it's not the worst. I mean, considering what some pitchers are going for, 6 is not bad at all.
No, it's not, and that was the biggest thing, right? Is that like people see, he's got a FIP minus of 100, or he's got an ERA plus of 110. They're thinking, okay, he's average. But a guy that can go out there, like the non-league average starters actually suck and don't get to play. So the fact that you're a league average starter and gets to play, there's some value there.
Yeah, and also he's been on the team. They know how to work with him. You know what I mean? They know what they're getting. They know how he's going to handle their ballpark. It's not you know what you're getting there, and that's fine.
Right. I think next one we can look at. We're to me now. So you already wanted to talk about Fernando Moreno a little bit. So we've gotten to me. I clearly have my own thoughts about this. What do you think about my Fernando Moreno contract?
I mean, I gotta look. What did you pay him again? It was.
It's a lot.
It was less than what he was asking. Way less than what he was asking for an extension. I know that because I had him for 2 minutes last season.
Right. So I paid him $15.5 in year 1. I gave him a 6-year deal. The last 2 years are options. Every year is $15.5 million, except for year 2, where he's 16.4. And then he's got a player
opt-out. Yeah.
But I hope that he takes the opt-out, but he might not because he's got $20 million in 2035. And that's the year I'm worried about. I can deal with it He also, by the way, has $6 million in incentives every year, but I'm not worried about that. That's not salary cap money.
He'll be 31 when the season starts. So even if you exercise all the options and he doesn't opt out, you got him through his 36-year-old season, which is, I mean, for a power hitting first baseman, that's not old. I mean, it's not young, but you know what I mean. He can thrive to that point.
This could actually end up being a really bad deal for me. I have a park that suppresses BABIP, so my best hitters, and it kills lefty power BABIP guys. So my best batters are like high ABK and high I, good contact guys. So this could end poorly.
Well, I mean, you got the eye. I mean, he's going to take walks, which is useful for you.
Oh, the other thing that happened here, and I can actually afford him fine. My ARB guys aren't going to get paid for a little bit, so it might be wasted money, but it'll fit into my salary structure okay. We're talking about one player forever here, but he is one of the big players, so maybe it feels like
he
I'm
was one
talking about my
of the
team a lot.
headliners of this class, so it's fine that we...
Right. It just feels like we're talking about my team a lot. This is kind of intriguing. So after the first free agency, I was actually in on, it's me, I love pitching, so I was like, I'll give iChart some money, see if he signs with me. And I was actually up on Ramirez, and Fernando Moreno wouldn't talk to me during the first free agency. So I looked at the second, and I had the best bid on Ramirez. And then I thought, do I really need pitching? If I've got one bullet to spend on an expensive guy this year, should I spend it on pitching? And I talked to Moreno again, and Brett in Vancouver actually had the biggest salary on him, and that's what made my mind up. So sorry, Brett, but that was an instant no. Like, just no, you can't have him for that price. So that was half the reason I went to get him was just so Brett wouldn't, and I could use a first baseman. And he ended up getting Ramirez, so we kind of flip-flopped there.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys ended up doing a little swapperoo there. Yeah,
right.
It looks like you got Ramirez for roughly the same that you got shorter term. And actually, we'll get to that, but I really like his deal for Ramirez.
It's a tremendous deal. You're right. I think you did a wonderful job when we get there. So I thought I did okay in free agency. I didn't hurt myself too much, but
you didn't do much. I mean, you lost
money
when you signed one, so I think net you ended up ahead.
Yeah,
just because Moreno's a better player than Martinez.
Right. So Charm City's next on the list. They really didn't get much in the way of big impact guys. I mean, I think Dylan Young had a bad year last year, but he's been a good, end of the bullpen guy. Pitched some important innings. They've only signed him for a year deal, so they're not tremendously exposed on it. 3.5 is fair for him. Jorge Stanza is kind of a reclamation project, 1.25 for one. They needed some pitchers. They're just kind of going to see if he can stick. I think that probably he won't. He's worth mentioning because of his name only. But the interesting one's the Sam Adams deal. So what do you think about that?
I mean, it's short term, which, I mean, even if it goes south, it's not for a ton of money. I mean, 5.3 is, I mean, it's up there, but it's not, backbreaking if it ends up going south on him.
Well, he's got Logan on his roster though, so it's kind of like, why? Like, what's the point? And he's made some noise about trading Logan.
Maybe this is a setup for that, but I mean, it is a little. I mean, he obviously he's had great success in his time in this league so far, so maybe he gets a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. But I was a little confused by that one.
Yeah, and in Sam Adams, I really don't know what you're getting with him. I mean, he definitely is going to control your running game, but he has been all over the place in terms of production. Like, at times, we had a great run in Brooklyn, but that was before they made their park. It used to be a big-time hitter's park, and then he had kind of a meh year, and then a solid year in Phoenix, and then in Omaha last year he was just garbage. So,
and it's not like he doesn't have huge splits that I can see. I mean, it's not like he's an obvious platoon candidate. You know what I mean?
Right. So I don't think Charm City hurt them. I think that hurt themselves. And we as we mentioned, one of the biggest things in a free agency class like this is to not hurt yourself, is to not overpay for something and screw yourself for a year. So I think anybody who didn't really, who gave themselves some options this year and didn't hurt their team probably actually did all right.
Well, and it's interesting when you look at, I mean, we're talking about what people gained, but Charm City lost some of their pitchers too.
They did. We mentioned that in the podcast a little bit. He's going to have some difficulty replacing some of those guys. I really didn't look into the law stuff too much on these because it took me 2 hours just to get through all of the
That's fair.
other stuff.
And
So I
then,
just
yeah,
kind of gave
especially
up.
the next team, Des Moines. I mean, this talk about signing guys to sign guys. I mean,
Yeah, and most of them don't matter, right? There's a bunch of guys in there where you're just like, okay, that doesn't matter. But they did get a couple, two that actually make a difference. One of them is Danny Lopez, who's 31, but he played in Des Moines before and played well. You know, he's a DH, and I think it's a pretty good deal. Like it's a pretty for a guy that's shown that he can hit there, that has put up some fairly consistently good offensive numbers. He's only paying him $5 to $6 million a year for a few years.
yeah, I mean, more than a few. He signed him through 2037. So I mean, he's got.
Right, the last two are team option and player option, so I'm assuming he's planning on declining that 2036 year so that he's not stuck with a.
I was going to say, because I think if you accept the team option, you got to plan on the guy taking the player option at 37.
Right at that point in his career. But I thought it was a reasonable little deal. He's not the best hitter in this class, but he's not the worst either. And again, it's kind of one of those known quantity things. He's a little bit older, but
and he's a clubhouse guy. I mean, he's a captain. You know what I mean?
Right, and those. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what you like about this game or don't like, make a difference.
Sure.
I thought the Hector Cantu signing on the other one was not so good.
I mean, I had Cantu last year for the first couple months, and I could tell you what he signed him for was less for what he was asking. He was asking for 10, at least during the season last year before he got hurt. I mean. And I kind of took him as a flyer and gave him a full-time job for the first time in a while. And he blew out last season and before he got hurt. And if he repeats that, he's totally worth the money.
But really? I mean, that's 1 year. One year he was like that. The other years,
$1 million question. I mean,
he's pretty much a 90 to 95 weighted runs created batter with very little pop. So he's a contact kind of decent OBP guy. With he'll hit a home run or two and a few doubles.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see him sustaining last year. I mean, he had 10 home runs for me in 45 games last year. I don't see that happening again anytime soon.
Right, and again, he is 29, so he's not super young. And I think the first 3 years of that contract are guaranteed.
Yeah,
I just feel like he's one of those guys. This is how you torpedo your team and chew up your money. Is you pay 7.5 is not a lot of money, but you pay like these kind of middling to big amounts of money on guys that really aren't making that big an impact. And if you do that twice, there goes Fernando Moreno. I can't even get him.
Yep.
And that's
in Cantu's defense, he will run, he will field very well for his. I mean, he's a corner outfielder and he can play center in a pinch. And
you know what? None of the corner outfielders in this league can field anymore. So it may be that he's got a little more value there than we're seeing. It could be in a couple years being an elite corner outfielder gets him a couple WAR just by itself because the other guys are starting to get so bad.
Well, and I think, I mean, he also, there's the flexibility he can play both left and right, and he's clearly betting that while he may not be as good as he was last year, he's the true value somewhere in the middle of where he had been and where he was. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think if he even regresses, if he's close to what he was last year, this is not a terrible deal. The question is, can he come close to what he was last year? And I don't know that he can.
I don't. I really think he doesn't. I hate to... and man, we all have our little biases. I'm willing to take, if a guy has one bad year, I'll gamble that he'll get that bad year to go away. If he has one good year, it's a fluke. So clearly I'm skewed in that direction.
Sure.
The next team up is Edmonton. They have my first F- of the free agency period, largely because they have $43.8 million in budget space.
And they literally not even, I know we're not talking trades in this, but they did not add a single player or prospect, at least so far.
Right, and they're not one of these teams like you are, or like the Twin Cities, or even like Phoenix, where they've got tons of young guys that are going to come. They've got a handful. They've got some really good, talented prospects that are going to be there soon, but they don't have a team's worth of them. they needed this is a team that, like, you can't just have all your prospects show up. You got to add a few players in free agency here and there. You got to try to find those contracts. And the other thing you should be doing is, like, find a guy you can trade. Sign a reliever for $2 million and wait for somebody to have an injury and flip it for a prospect. Or
yeah, I mean, you don't. I'm not advocating go out and bomb the market and sign a bunch of 5 and 6 year deals.
Right.
But you can take even 2, maybe even 3 years if you throw some options on there, and just see if you can do something. You know what I mean?
You didn't do anything to help your season ticket sales, and this is a thing that you and I talked about a little bit before the show. Is I'm gonna yell at people about signing and trading or signing something over and over during this. And I think that the thing people miss about this is, like what we're saying, is you have to start pumping your fan interest as soon as the offseason starts, because on January 1st, season tickets go on sale, and season tickets are so much more important than late season gate revenue, because you can suck and your fan interest can go to garbage, but you already sold those season tickets. You already made that money.
Sure. And I mean, I say that knowing that I released a guy who was very popular, and frankly, because he was dead weight and he wouldn't take a demotion, and I didn't want him on my major league roster. So I kind of went against your thinking there. But for me, that was more of just hey, I don't need this guy on my team, and he's making $13 million, so I'm just going to eat that cost up front, take a little bit of the fan interest hit, and just, move on.
Well, and there's subsets to every scenario. It's not like you should never do that, but to have a completely inactive free agency with more money, his spare budget money will immediately fill his bonus funds. So everything, if he has any money in bonus funds right now, he's already got money that he's just going to flat out lose. So to not spend any of it is you're just losing a year.
Now maybe he has plans to take on some bad contracts and pick up prospects that way. You know what I mean? Like I'll take your crappy contract for a couple of years if you give me, kind of like what who picked up it was Omaha, I think, that picked up Barnard from Nashville.
Right, and that's not a bad plan. And I'm not trying to dump on one guy here. It's more the theme. I don't know. Oh, geez, and now I'm blanking on who runs Edmonton.
It's Brooks. It's
Brooks. Oh, it's Brooks. Yeah, that's right. It used to be Allen, and I keep thinking it's Allen, but he's gone. I don't know what Brooks is thinking. He may have a plan, and this isn't to dump on him like he's not doing anything. But you see this enough times that some people are missing out. That someone's making this mistake.
Well, and he also, I know because he came in a couple weeks after I did into the league. He may just be trying to feel out how things, you know what I mean? It's his first offseason.
That's true also, and there is something to be said for not hurting yourself, right? Looking at that offseason and going, I don't really know what the value on these guys is. So that's a solid point.
Yeah, I had a full offseason last year to kind of figure out how the league works and how different guys are valued and everything. He didn't have that. So maybe he just, like you said, just did I maybe could make a few moves and improve a little bit, but I think there's a far better chance of things blowing up in my face, so I'm just going to sit it out and, you know what I mean, let my team develop.
So another next team up is you. You really didn't do much. You signed Juan Aravello.
I needed a backup middle infielder, and he's had kind of going along with the year. He had one bad year, and he's had a couple decent years. Not great, but you know what I mean.
Well, he's exactly what he is. You spent almost next to nothing on him, which is what you should spend for a backup middle infielder. That's pretty much way to be super exciting. Good job. Way to
my trades were a lot more fun. Let's put it that way.
So Hawaii's next. They didn't do much either. Really, they signed a couple guys, they only just one. Ned Brewer is really what they picked up. I thought they paid nothing for him. $1.1 million for a couple of years. He's actually like kind of a decent defender in a corner outfield spot, which is getting a little bit rarer. And he could be a good right-handed half of a platoon. Like, that's somebody that you could use or flip. I thought that was actually a pretty decent signing.
Yeah, and how long did they sign him for? What, 2 years?
2 years, 29 and 30, age 29 and 30. Like a nice little
Yeah, is he gonna win any awards with that signing? No, but it's, you know what I mean?
Right.
He could turn it into something.
Right. Huntsville is next. I'll let you give your take on what you think of the Andre Wellington, Juan Cruz, and Mario Lopez signings. I have some thoughts, but I wanted to see if maybe I'm just a jerk.
I mean, Wellington, 1 year, 3.4. I mean, yeah, he's old. He's been around forever. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know why he signed a second baseman when I traded him Wilfer last year, unless he's planning on playing Wellington at third. But
he can't play third. He's got a 5 arm.
I mean, that's so.
He can't play third. Like, his zone rating might still be through the roof, but he's not throwing guys out. It's just a crap ton of infield singles all the time.
Yeah, I mean, look at the contract by itself. The contract and the player is not bad. The fit is more the question there.
Right.
Moving on to Cruz, again, another 1 year. This one's even less, like $3 million. Corner outfield, a decent fielding corner outfielder. Got some pop in the bat. I mean, sure. I mean, he's not great on offense, but that's one where I'm kind of surprised that you signed him to a 1 year deal, because that's a guy where if he performs, he could be a useful piece for a couple, you know what I mean? A couple years. Maybe he wouldn't take a longer deal, but I would think that maybe one, like we saw a couple signings earlier where it was like one with a couple team options tacked on the end. And I thought Cruz is a prime candidate for that sort of offer.
Yeah, that's not a bad thought. That's not a bad thought at all. And then what do you think about Mario Lopez?
I mean, I bullpen guys, for me, I believe in the philosophy of you can build that on the fly, so I don't subscribe to spending a ton of money on bullpen guys.
No, I've been hurt sometimes because it's taken me too much of the season to get the bullpen going, and it's knocked me out of the playoffs before. But I'm mostly with you. I don't like to spend a ton of money on them, and $3 million a year for a guy that's going to be 34, 35, and 36 is a little much for me. So here, I'm gonna. Scott's not going to like me very much, but I think this is a series of 3 bad moves that essentially show you what's going on in Huntsville. That's why Huntsville is going into the shitter. Huntsville is old. They've got some guys in their prime that are kind of 27 to 30, but that's the back end of your prime. They don't have a lot of young talent. They're already a losing franchise. I don't see the purpose of signing any of these guys. Like, these aren't crowd pleasers. This is, players you didn't necessarily have to have. You're not really going to, maybe you can trade Cruz. Nobody's going to take Wellington. Nobody's going to take Lopez on that deal. I mean, a team that should be rebuilding doesn't need to be signing 34-year-old relievers. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I mean, Wellington, if he was 3 years younger, that's a deal where that's a candidate for a sign and flip. You know what I mean?
Right. And oops, sorry.
Yeah, but I agree with you. And, well, I mean, I've been surprised before, but I don't see anybody trading for that contract. I mean,
right. These aren't necessarily bad deals either, but it's a symptom of a bigger problem, which is you've got a leaky boat and you're trying to, this is like, I'll probably almost word for word of the team preview I just wrote, but like, you've got a team with holes in it and you're trying to plug those holes when you should be looking, for a new team. Like, it just, these are signings to fill positions of need.
Well, not even in the case of Wellington. He's got Wilfer, who's
but I think he thinks Wellington's going to play third base. But still, when your team can't compete, signing 1 year deals for players that you can't flip to fill positions in need is just seems like a waste. It's just kind of you're looking at the whole thing wrong.
I mean, you do have to factor in that he's in the JLS with me, and we're not the deepest division in the league. I mean, we got Matt up top, and then it's open after that. You know what I mean? So maybe he's thinking he can get up into that second spot, which would put him in contention for a wild card, but I don't see it. I mean,
especially with 3 guys that combined to produce 1.1 WAR last year. I'm pretty sure that getting him from, let's say he underachieved his Pythagorean, expectation by 10 games, so he should have had 83 wins. Well, he just got to 84 wins. It's not any good. Like, it just doesn't work.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all, especially because he lost Curry as a DH. He traded away Rodriguez.
Right, and we were talking about the kind of deals you make so that you can't sign your own players. These are those kind of deals. Like, this is how you continue to just fritter money away here and there. And they're not long, but particularly the Lopez one, why? I don't see the point.
Yeah, that was the only multi-year deal too.
Right. Anyway, we've just dumped on one person horribly, and Scott hates us now. Moving on to Jacksonville. This is another weird move in here that I'm not sure I get, but Tyler sometimes has a plan that I'm not totally aware of. He signed 2 players I thought out of this group that mattered. John Woods, I think, is a nice little pickup. I mean, for $1.75 million, he's been reasonably effective out of the bullpen at times. You don't really like looking at movement and control, but if you look at the numbers he's put up for $1.75 million for 1 year.
Yeah, he's a specialist, if I remember correctly, pretty much. And I mean, I think the stuff may overweigh the movement issue there because he's got 4 damn good pitches, which for a reliever is rare.
Right. The other one's Patrick Louis, who I hate. I don't think anyone should ever pay him any money. So I don't know what Tyler's doing with him because he's a first baseman. Some people think he can play third base, but he can't. He can't do it. He's terrible there. He's like a -2 wins, like just from his defense there alone over a full season. So I don't know what he's for because they've got Rutledge at first, and he might be thinking, well, Rutledge gets hurt a lot. I'd like to move him to DH because he really is a DH. Well, Hahn's blocking him at DH.
And Hahn's not going anywhere.
Right. And then if you're thinking you're going to play him at third base, which again is a horrible idea, it's been proven that he can't do that.
Yeah, and I mean, Tyler's experimented with enough bad defensive guys in the past that he should know that. Like,
right, and Norburu is a great third baseman, and he mentioned that Norburu can play the outfield, which I totally get, but that just seems like a waste of his bat. And you're going to move Norburu to left for Lou to suck at third base, and I think he's got Braddock who can play left. So and he's got Sandcastle now and Chavez, so he has a full outfield. He only spent $5 million for one, so I don't. Maybe he just thought the guy was there. Maybe he's planning to trade Hahn to try to get a pitcher. I don't know. It's kind of a curious move. I'm assuming Simmons has a plan. I just don't know what it is. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so it's entirely possible. There's tons of plans out there that I won't be aware of. But
it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Right. Vegas didn't do much that was tremendously exciting, right? Like, you haven't been around long enough to remember when Diego Moreno was actually one of the best players in the league. Amazingly, at 37, he still has a glove, but he can't hit anymore.
I was gonna say, I mean, looking at he's what 5 Zimmer awards, 5 All-Star spots, couple Puckett awards. I mean,
yeah, he used to be tremendous. Ramon Espinosa, I thought was a nice pickup, right? Like he's a good half of a platoon. He can still defend the corners okay. Rex doesn't need the right half of a platoon.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just trying to nibble around the edges and maybe get something that he can flip at this point. You know what I mean?
Like what's there? You know, and he didn't hurt. Like I said, Rex has a team, so he didn't need to sign anybody. It just
I think he's just trying to play the Powerball and hey, I got something that I can flip and actually get something useful long term.
Right. So next up is Long Beach, who I think we're going to end up spending some time on because they signed everyone. They signed all the players.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Who do you think out of that group is the biggest the biggest deal out of all those guys they picked up?
I mean, they're pitchers. I mean, they definitely at least made an effort to improve their rotation.
Well, yeah, I almost think, though, the pitching aspect was kind of a just let's sign 5 guys and see if 2 of them can stick sort of approach, right? Because Chester Kipling, and they didn't overexpose themselves at all. I mean, they're all short, cheap deals. Chester Kipling,
2 years, 1 year, $2 million. I mean,
right. He really overperformed last year. I don't know that he'll be able to do a similar sort of thing this year. Jose Rivera, 6 for 1, which seemed a little pricey. But again, it's 1 year. He's got the money. He's been okay at times. Other times he's been garbage. Jorge Jimenez is another one where I think he actually looked a little better when he was signed, but has since lumped with 5.25 for 1.
Yeah, and he's bounced around the last couple of years. I mean, he wasn't even a full-time starter in Huntsville.
Right. Kenny Hill, again, just taking a flyer on a guy that's been able to relieve at times for $1.6 million. Manny Vargas, again, he's getting a little older, but 2.75 times for one. That's a nice little just see if it works kind of deal. I think the bats is where it gets interesting, right? Like Attilo Ciabara, he gave $7.83 million for 1 year, and then $9.83 with the most hilarious vesting option I've ever seen. If you want to take a peek at that one.
690 plate appearances.
Yeah.
Is that even like legal?
I don't know. It's great. It's terrific. I mean, he can do it.
I mean, I'd have to go through. Has anybody had 690 plate appearances in the history of the Brewster?
Oh yeah, definitely. Plenty of times. You can get 700 plate appearances. Not too tough. If you don't ever walk, or the walks don't matter. You can actually get close to 700 at bats if you don't ever walk.
I'm taking out walks, but yeah, plate appearances is a little more, but
right. Ciabara, I think, is a great player. Like, he had a crud year last year, but before that, I think he was a 4 to 7 WAR player over and over again. It'll be interesting if he bounces back. That's a guy that can play. He's also kind of funny. He's rated, the only position he's not rated at, like doesn't have a defensive rating, is second base, which is his natural position.
Yeah, that's what he's listed at.
Right. But he can play all over the place. I thought that was a nice, attempt there at kind of catching lightning in a bottle.
And I mean, again, I'm kind of surprised he didn't go slightly longer term with that, because great, Seabrook comes up, does great this year, and probably isn't going to hit that vesting option, so you're going to either have to pay him more money to stick around, or it's gone.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm glad he didn't, because I got to see a person put a vesting option for 690 plate appearances in. So. Gilberto Keating, I actually tried to pick him up like years and years ago in a trade from Montreal, and we never could come up with something, and then he turned out to not be as good of a player as we thought he was. But it's not a bad deal, right? Like $3.6 million for a few years with an option there. He can play a couple key defensive positions at third and short pretty well. Good OBP guy. I don't know where he's going to play on this team.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking at that. It's a long deal, too. I mean, it's a 3 with a team option for a 4th.
Well, it's only 33,
and for a guy who
ends.
I'm guessing is going to be your backup middle infielder, like...
I'm kind of with you there. I mean, it's not a bad deal, but like the fit is kind of strange, right? Because Yelanian's great at third, and while maybe you could make an argument that in certain years Keating is better than Bree Becker at short, I don't think that's the case. So I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe Lane disagrees with us, but I mean if the plan is to use him as a backup, I think 3.6 for that long is
strange,
a little excessive.
Yeah, I'm with you. And
I don't mind the length, but it's the money in that case that gets me.
I think Lane is winning the weird contracts award portion of this show, because the next one's a little bizarre too. So James Cunningham is only 31, but he's clearly in the decline phase of his career. And the first year, this looks phenomenal. He's making $1.4 million, which for a backup right-handed half of a platoon that maybe in a pinch you could start would be amazing. And then he pays him $5.8 million next year,
and then a team option for 4.8 after that,
which he won't pick up.
No, and he'll have to pay $500K to get out of it. But
right, but what's up with the 5? Was like, did he mean to click the team option box and forget? Like, I don't know why anyone would pay Cunningham $5.8 million.
I mean, I'd have to look at his salary setup. Maybe he has a ton of space open up next year that he doesn't this year, and so he wanted to pay him like 3 each year, but he couldn't make it work. I don't.
He drops $40 million off the books next year.
So there you go. There's your, you know what I mean? He was valuing him at $3 million a year, but needed to do it weirdly in order to make it work for his books.
Well, but he's also got some guys he could extend too, though. I mean, he's got, does he give Esteban Gil an extension? I don't know. Maybe not, given that guy's injury history. Ippolito Basaglia is 29. Does he extend him? I don't know. Yeah, you know what? He really doesn't have a lot of committed money. So I guess that makes sense. He just said, screw it, I don't care.
I mean, I'm with you in the sense that I don't necessarily like the contract from just a value point of view, but if you know what I mean, I can at least see the logic for him a little tiny bit.
Yeah, it's just kind of odd. So overall, I thought this was a pretty good free agency for Lane.
We signed enough guys. Some of them have to work out,
well,
right?
and that's what I think. These are all late signings too. So he didn't give up. You see a ton of guys that like they miss out on their first guy and they don't reevaluate and or they overpay for a guy later. And he just kind of kept plugging away and getting guys that that could work. Yeah, that could work. Yeah, that could work. And a few of those guys are going to work. It's not ideal, but it's it's kind of not a bad approach.
We were even in this last 6 minutes we've been talking about him. Yeah, we don't love any of the deals, but we don't hate a lot of them either. It's kind of just like, why?
Right.
So, I mean, guess, maybe.
Speaking of why, next up is Louisville.
Wait, the genius knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he probably does.
He's got the best. I compared the genius to Donald Trump.
I noticed that. That was a pretty. I don't because I like I actually like Stu, but and I think that the genius speaks a little bit more eloquently. Not to get into political stuff.
That's not hard. I mean, my dog speaks more eloquently.
But he's probably just as insane.
And the ego is just as big.
That's true. That is true. So the Ed Curry, I think, is the biggest deal here because he is probably the second best bat available in free agency, and Ed Curry is phenomenal. I think he's probably underrated.
Second best bat, and maybe the second worst in everything else.
Right, like he can't field. He's a DH, and that limits his value. But the cool thing about him is he's a lefty that doesn't have that big of a fall off against lefties, and those aren't that common. And his contract's pretty solid, right? Like.
It's 12-3 all the way. It's 12-3 for 5 years, and then a player option at 12-3 for the sixth.
Right, the end gets a little bit ugly. Stu's had some luck with older players recently, so it may just be that his barometer's a little bit off.
Older players and flipping those contracts. He's had some success with that too.
That's true. I mean, he's proven that he knows how to get out of them. That he will be able to get out of them.
And 12-3 is not. I mean, yeah, it's not great, but it's not awful.
Right. And this is a guy that's only failed to hit, twice. But the last couple of years, nearly 50 home runs, a couple more 30 home run seasons. He gets on base pretty well.
I mean, his bat. No issues with the bat. I mean, the man is a professional hitter.
Right. The weird thing though is that the way it makes him move stuff around because with signing Curry, he then has to move. Fernando Cruz to first base. Cruz is a great player and he can play first base and that's fine. But then where does he play Clough, who he really likes, and for good reason. Clough used to be, I believe, a second baseman, but he's at the point now where he can only play first. But he's a good bat. I mean, he's at 39, but he's a switch hitter that is an on-base machine. And I think he just knocked that bat out of his lineup. So it's kind of odd.
Yeah, I mean it's I don't like signing guys to big money who are absolutely 100% locked into DH.
Right.
Because like you said, it constricts the rest of your lineup and makes you do some weird things.
Well, and maybe Stu. I mean, Stu's probably planning on trading stuff. I mean, he is the genius. I'm sure he has a plan. The other one that's a little bit weird is after signing Curry, he went out and got Ricardo Guzman, who might have been the second best DH on the market. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I far from a mere peon to question the genius.
Well, and he just signed Guzman, like literally March 5th, so he might have just said, screw it, I've got the money, $4.5 million with a team option for next year for Guzman. If I can trade him for anything, this is worth it.
That has to be the thought there because, I mean, Guzman and Curry, and it's not like, I mean, Guzman's not even rated on defense.
Right, and so we're looking
at... Curry at least has a 1 at one position. Guzman's doesn't even have a position listed. He is the very definition of a DH.
Yeah, but he's a decent player, and he's young enough he's going to win. And we were talking about teams that should sign a guy and flip him. Here you go. This is why Stu is churning stuff out of his minors year after year after year, because he's going to flip Guzman probably for a lottery ticket, but he's going to do that every year. He's going to flip somebody, and some of those lottery tickets cash out. So, and
Sure.
that's why he
And
has
I mean,
guys coming up.
For now, this is if he doesn't manage to flip Guzman, this is a complete blow up, and I don't understand it.
Well, but is it really a blow up? I mean, he doesn't need the money. Like, he has a team. He didn't need to spend it on anything else.
Yeah, but I mean, why not maybe spend the money on somebody who can? I mean, unless you're, I mean, Curry, to my knowledge, doesn't have a bad injury history. You know what I mean? Like, you're not getting injured. I don't get it.
Well, and again, remember,
unless
Guzman was a signing.
Unless the plan is to flip it.
It's got to be to flip it. And Guzman was a signing at the end of free agency. Like, the season, spring training had started when he signed him. So he literally just said, screw it, I've got $5 million left. Why not? Which isn't the worst thing in the world. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's an odd fit. It's an odd fit, but he's, it's, like I said, if that money is just going to go away, why not? Madison's kind of next. They have a bunch of little minor guys that I think, they might help a little. They might not. He didn't really hurt himself.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned he's going to throw Lee in the bullpen. He's not a starter at this point.
Right. He talked about Bart Ender. Bart Ender's, that's not a bad deal for Ender. He's not super old yet. He's had a couple. He'll have like 2 good years for every bad year. And his good years are quite good. So that's a reasonable deal for him.
And as far as Browning goes, like I mean, 1.7 for 1 year.
You can't do much worse, right, on a gamble? Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm looking at him and trying to figure out how the living hell he was worth 2.5 WAR last season.
Right. Well, Seattle, you got to remember, Seattle's a hitter's park. So that ERA might be more like 5 than 5.6.
Even so, the WHIP is not great. Even a 5 ERA isn't. You know what I mean? And 173 innings and 32 starts is. I mean,
the pitcher WAR is garbage anyway. It's a counting stat, and it's skewed because the amount of innings pitchers pitch varies so much that if you just go out there and suck for close to 200 innings, you end up with 2 to 3 WAR.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's a guy I traded who I was literally going to non-tender. Chris Brown was worth 2 WAR and he was garbage.
But if you're going to gamble on a pitcher, 1.72 million is how you do it. So that's not bad.
And I mean, again, I like the philosophy of if you're going to take a gamble, try to see if you can pack a few team options at the end. That way you can maybe benefit from, you know what I mean?
Yeah, either trade the guy or get another shot at it. That's a good point. I don't know.
Who's going to turn down if you're willing to take a 1-year deal for 1.7? You're not going to turn down a 3-year deal for 5 with a couple team options on there.
I never really look at it too much that way, but that's a good point. I mean, especially if the buyout's like minimal to nothing, why not bring him back next year and see if it works again?
Yeah, because let's say Browning makes me look like a dumbass and blows up and has a great season, then great. He's great for this year, and Madison obviously is in. I mean, they're a win now type team. They're in contention now, but you'd like to get some possible benefit in later years as well.
Right. So Mexico City, I think, actually had a pretty bad free agency. Mark Little. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say 2 catchers is always interesting. 3 catchers. Well, when you factor in the 2 Rule 5 guys, but
right. I think those were taken before he got Warren, who I think he paid too much for. It's not that damaging, really, of a deal. It's 3.2 with a couple 3.2 team options, but he's a backup. So.
I mean, he took the same philosophy I was just espousing. I just don't know if he applied it to the right player.
Right. Well, but again, if it works out, it works out. It's not damaging. It's just not that exciting. That's not a bad deal. Mark Little, I think it's an okay deal for Mark Little. He's a little better than a league average reliever, 1.5 million. That's fine. That's what you pay those guys in arbitration. The reason I thought it was a bad free agency is he has 40 million in cap space. Or budget. I don't remember which one it was, but he has 40 million he could have spent, and he doesn't have a DH. So why didn't he go pick up one? Why wasn't he in on Ed Curry? And if he wasn't going to be in on Ed Curry, I mean, Guzman was just sitting there like a week ago.
I don't disagree. The only thing I may give him a pass on the money is because he just moved.
Right, he may not have had it before. That's a good point. I
So
don't know.
he may have been. I mean, yeah, he has money now, but he's gonna have to pay moving costs because I think he did the payment plan.
Also,
So
Fred's a really good OTP guy. Like for years, he was winning with smoke and mirrors in Omaha, like just having 100 win teams with teams that looked like they were 85 win teams, and he stayed competitive and was really a thorn in the side of everybody in that division who finally thought it was their year. And it seems like he's been a little less active the last few years. I don't know if his life is getting busy or something else going on, but I just haven't seen the same kind of savvy um, kind of GM ship out of him that we've seen in the past. So this is just kind of a weird thing for me to see him not kind of plug those holes with, like again, this is a team that, and maybe that's why he didn't do it. Maybe he's saying like what I think Huntsville should do. I'm not competitive right now. Why spend a lot of money on older players? I don't know. I can't really. And that's because that's a team that I'm not sure is should be trying to compete or not. They've got some young parts that are good, and they have some other ones that aren't. And so I don't know. It's it's hard to make a real. But I think it's overall it probably wasn't a very good free agency.
yeah, I mean, no issue with the players. So it sounds like you're making the. I don't have an issue with the guys he signed, but he probably should have been in on some others.
Yeah, if he wants to compete, and maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's saying this isn't the time to do that. Which in that division wouldn't be the worst thought process at the current time. I just don't know. Like I'm not used to seeing Fred not try to compete, which is kind of weird.
Sure.
Um, Montreal did Montreal things. I think probably at least a couple of these are going to end up looking brilliant, and we'll all just sit and hate on how much better John is than the rest of us. Um, they don't look exciting. Oops, go ahead.
I was gonna say he lost some guys. I mean, yeah, he made a few decent signings, but I think that's one where you also got to look at what went out the door.
Well, but the guys he lost are old, right? Like Jorge Rodriguez and Juan Fernandez are corner outfielders that can't defend anymore. And if any of us have things coming up through our minor league systems, they're young corner outfielders. So
that's true.
Stanza's done. Domingo Hernandez,
we just talked about Warren. I mean,
right. So, but Adam Parrish is interesting, right? He's a 26-year-old switch hitter who can defend in right field fairly well. With 7.66 ratings, and he's sucked when he's been up so far, or at least last year. He might be a little better than that. Like that could end up being a pretty nice deal for Montreal if he can hit to his rating. Some of those switch hitters can really overachieve. Santana is clearly brought back to be a multi-purpose backup and signed to an appropriate amount of money for that. Sanchez is an okay reliever, and he didn't pay him too much. I mean, it's a nice little, just small moves.
Yeah, I was gonna say no headliners there, but you can. I mean, you signed backup to backup's money. That's what you got to do sometimes.
Well, and given that John's John, I fully expect Adam Parrish to have at least one 5-WAR season over the duration of that contract. Nashville didn't do anything. This is another one. You've got 15 mil under the budget.
Another move, though. Keep in mind, maybe he's just trying to save his money.
That's true. Maybe the budget went up after he moved. That's a good point.
Yeah, either the budget went up, or he's, you know what I mean, knowing he's got moving costs coming, and is going to try to keep his finances down for a little bit.
Right, but if not, sign something. If so, who knows? I don't know what's going on in New Orleans. Jim's a very, very, very good owner, so I hate to second guess him. I just thought he spent a lot of money.
I mean, let's go. I mean, Aguilera, $6 million for what, one season?
It's one season, but why would you give? Who bid up John Aguilera? Like who was he bidding against for John Aguilera for $6 million? You might have been able to get him for $2 million.
I mean, I know I put in a bid for like 2 or 3.
Oh, did you? Oh.
Well, no, but I mean, he was one of the guys I was looking at him as my back. You know what I mean? I was saying I was looking for a backup middle infielder. Aguilera was one of the high end guys that I targeted.
He is, and he's a really high end backup infielder, and you could start him in a pinch. But on the other hand,
I like that. I mean, he plays 3 positions very well. I mean,
Did he pay them $6 million well?
No.
And he's got comparable or better players at every position. So, and he's got enough there for back. I mean, it's not like he's a bad player. I just don't. $6 million's a lot. It's 1 year though. But
yeah, and I mean, again, this is one of those where Aguilera is the type of guy that, especially for that kind of money, sign him for a couple of team options and try to trade him.
Right.
Because inevitably somebody's going to have an infield injury, and Aguilera could play them all well enough that he could fill in anywhere. And somebody probably would have overpaid for him in a trade because they got injury issues.
Right. The money thing's a theme, though, because he signed Jorge Vargas, who I thought was one of the better players you could get out of this free agency class. But he paid him, and again, it's a descending contract, which is nice to see. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Someone drove me nuts. But 18, 16, 12-5, 12-5, 10-5 team option.
That's a nice step ladder with a weird plateau there in seasons 3 and 4. But I mean,
right. But again, did he really need to give him $18 million? And maybe he did. It's a lot. Like, it just seems like maybe it should be $1 million or $2 million less per season. Especially for a guy that's maybe got only a year or two of center field left in him. You know, once he becomes a corner outfield bat, is he nearly as valuable?
No, but I mean, he's not the. I mean, he's not the worst guy out there. I mean, I don't know, like you. I mean, I don't view that as an 18 million because of the whole step down thing. I view that as more. What's the average come out to? Like 14 or 15 million a year, something like that.
All right. Do you want to pay him 14 million a year to play with corner outfield?
No, like I would. Yeah, I think there are worse guys. I think there are worse guys you can get for 14 million if you look at some of the contracts around this league.
Right. Oh yeah, and it just seems that the average annual value on these is all just like a little bit high. They're not atrocious. You know, another one is he picked up Jose Gutierrez as a reliever and paid him 3.6 a year. And for me, again, a decent player, a good player, but that could have been like a $3 million deal.
Well, and that one's got some length on it too. I mean, that's a 2-year, 2 with a third as a team option.
Right.
So I mean that I don't mind the length, but this goes back to I forget who we were talking about with it earlier. Relievers, if you're paying them $3.5 million in their mid-30s, they better be a guy like Dominguez or a lights-out closer. You know what I mean?
Right. And with these deals, he's put himself right up against the cap. I don't think he has more than $10 million in space for the next 3 seasons. And that's the thing that's kind of weird about it is like, I don't know. And I don't know. Jim's got some young pitchers coming through, and if with one of those guys' ARB's really high, like he may be unable to sign extensions. He's a good GM who's been really competitive for a long time, and you know I'm sure he has a plan. They're just none of these are bad deals. They're all just like I said, maybe like 20% higher in value or 10% higher in value than it seems like.
And when you sign one of those, it's one thing. When you have 3 or 4 of them in the same class,
right? Exactly. Like you add them all together. I don't know.
Now I think this next team, Omaha, I'll let you take the lead on this one, but I like what they did.
I did too. I skipped a bunch of them because a lot of these guys don't matter. But the ones that they did a good job on. The one I don't like is Dave Robertson because I think he's a backup at this point, and I think it looks like they're going to use him as part of a platoon. Like he's the right-handed hitting half of a platoon. I don't know. It's not that bad. I guess you can pay $3.5 million to $4.5 million for your weak half of a platoon. It just seems like a little much. But I love Tavio Sikalea's contract. I think that's one of the best ones in this free agency. How the hell do you get
I would
that
actually
guy?
have made that, and this is going to sound weird for a guy pitcher who's going to be 35. I might have tacked a year or 2 onto that.
Well, it's a 1-year deal. This guy's going to opt out.
It's 1 year it's weird because he's got a player opt out and a team option.
Right, and I don't know that these work well. A couple of years ago when the player opt-out showed up, I tried to make some mutual options like that, like a player opt-out team option, and the game didn't handle it correctly in a couple cases. Like the player opted out, or no, the player opted in, but something weird happened where the option didn't execute correctly. You know, like like they went to free agency and they wouldn't. It wasn't in every case, so. But it's essentially a 1-year deal, right? This guy's he's probably gonna opt out unless he has a garbage year, which is the only bad downside to it. But how do you get a guy who's at worst a league average starter for $4.5 million? Like that's.
Oh, I like I said, I have no issue with the money whatsoever. In fact, like the only issue I have is I might have thrown another year or two on there because I mean he's
right. And Snabel's the same way, right? Like these are all very safe deals, and these are older guys, so he's totally protected himself if they implode this year.
yeah.
And Omaha's in a spot where if the team implodes this year, it's really not that big a deal. They're still building. Snabel's the same sort of thing. He's a league average starter at this point in his career, maybe a little worse, but $6.5 million for a year, perfect. And if he somehow opts in and he can pick up that team option, great, but it probably won't happen. Miguel Lehrer is kind of an interesting player. He's in free agency every year. Every year, everyone ignores him, and every year he gets picked up near the end of free agency and puts up a 3 ERA. Like it's like it's become like an annual ritual of where will Miguel Lehrer play this year. But those 4 signings, I mean, that's really good. Like Justin's done a really good job of just slowly building this team and not hurting himself. And
Yeah,
not
I mean, he's
going
is he
overboard.
he's in the heartland, right? He's with I mean, that's a tough division
Right,
to be messing around in. So I think he's doing it the right way.
right.
But
Just
and
kind of-
I like his offseason.
No, I thought it was one of the better ones. I thought it was pretty good.
Phoenix.
Marco is going to hate me. And I love Sean Marco. I played in another league with him. Apparently, he's known Rex for a long, long, long time. But he's always been a really reasonable guy, easy to trade with. I will tell you, if you look at his teams, he loves home runs, and he wins with them. Like every good Sean Marco team I've seen is just 1,050,000 home run guys, no defense, and maybe an ace and a bunch of chump starters, and he wins with it. And that's what he's building.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I mean, he's got Diortiz, he's got Marco Marin I forget his first name coming up.
So he's going to have like 4 or 5 guys that could hit 50 home runs all at the same time.
Well, and he picked up Wyatt, who, I mean, he can actually play defense, which is a nice bonus.
Yeah, I don't know about that Wyatt deal.
I mean,
it starts great,
you gotta like it better than the who were we just talking about for New Orleans, the Vargas deal.
Do you? Well, I do and I don't. Wyatt's not really a center fielder anymore, so maybe this year, maybe next year, but like he's not really a center fielder, and he's already declined a little bit. So I just feel like those last couple of years of this contract, like, well, with their options, that ain't
I was
bad.
gonna say, team he gave himself options after 3 years.
I somehow missed that those were options. No, this is fine then, because that $8 million this year is okay. That 12 and 2035, it could be a little painful.
But I mean, even then, he's gonna be 30 years old, 29, 30 years old. I mean,
yeah, but some of these guys that start declining when they're 26, 27 are garbage by 30. Some of them, they just took that little bit of a bump and they'll be fine. This is better than I thought it was when I looked at it. The Considine deal, sorry?
No, I was going to say, yeah, Considine, I mean, the
4.8
re-signing
the
his
first
own guy
year is good.
fine. I mean,
that 8 next year could be ugly. Phoenix should be okay for the money because they don't have to pay their guys for a few years yet. Another one is the Emilio Sanchez deal. I just think it's a little long. And again, it escalates. I looked at, and Sanchez is an okay reliever. I looked at Phoenix's kind of budget situation. They had to do this. They don't have a budget right now. So they're going to have to win some games and get a bigger budget, or these contracts could hurt them. That's kind of the big thing.
I'm in the same situation as far as my budget was 84, and I think he's in a similar type
spot.
spot.
Like he's pretty low. So I understand why these are escalating deals. Sometimes you're forced into those. I would say that, and it seems like we've all kind of figured this out, but what I've noticed, and Marco's not a new GM, he did this because he had to, but this game models itself after real baseball, which is full of escalating deals, and most sports, a lot of sports have escalating deals, especially the ones without true caps. I hate escalating deals. You should never sign them, ever. They're bad. Someone used to argue with me that there's a time and a place for them. I don't think there's, if you're unless you plan to suck, there's never a time for them. Because
the difference between escalating deals in a game like this and reality is you get the TV contracts that inevitably skyrocket, balloon each year. You know what I mean?
Right, but even in those, they're bad. Like even in actual real life baseball, they're bad. Because generally, what you're doing with an escalating deal is that you're and they're hard to avoid because they're the standard. But yeah, especially for us, right? Because you're paying more when the player's worse.
Yeah,
And most people are moving down the defensive spectrum. I think that's the thing people forget about is they're like, oh, I can pay a little more for him later, forgetting that, like in the case of Wyatt, when you're paying, let's say those weren't options, now you're paying more for him to be a corner outfielder instead of a center fielder. Like you, rather than just a little more, it's a lot more when you take in their loss of ability to play premium defensive positions. And unless you have a point in the future where you're saying, I'm packing it in these 3 years anyway, it doesn't matter if I overpay chumps then, which I never want to do, ever. I don't want that to ever be, I am not a tank and rebuild guy. I won't do it unless I absolutely have to. I just think they're a bad plan. And if you notice, I actually do the opposite. A lot of times I will sign hugely front-loaded deals. Like if there's a year where I'm, a couple of years ago, I had some cap space, and I think I gave Boogie Eisenhower and Newman Watson like twice what they were asking for in year one, so I could pay them considerably yet less as they were getting older. And it's worked, it's yeah, I don't know. I just
sure. I mean, I do either. I base mine off of my young guys and when they're cut. You know what I mean? Like if I know I have money now, I'll do the front-loaded deals, but if I know I have a bunch of guys that I'm probably going to let go in a year or two anyway, I'll sign the backloaded deal and just get them in now, and when I let those guys go and have that money available, I can pay for the...
Yeah, but I think when you're looking at that situation, you go, oh, I've got money available later. Well, you just spent it, so you don't anymore. That's the point is, do you want to spend it on a guy... every year I'm right up against the cap, regardless of what I do. So do I really have that money available later, or have I just not paid the players that are actually good that are going to take up that space? And this idea that I can punt some money later on, I think, is how you get yourself into trouble.
Well, and I do think it's interesting that we're talking about how to handle contracts and everything when we're talking about Phoenix, considering they're the ones that took the Billy Chappell contract.
Well, but they had the money this year.
Jacksonville gave him the money.
Oh, they gave him the money too. Perfect. So the other thing too is we talked about how he had to increase his revenue. Well, there you go. I mean, there was the move to put some butts in the seats and see if you can get the budget up a little bit next year.
Sure. He even said, he's like, that was my sole reason for doing this deal was fan interest.
Right. And that's, you can... Yeah, I'm not trying to crap on Marco here. I think he's kind of handicapped by his budget situation. That was just my little diatribe about those kind of contracts in general, not specifically what he did. Moving on to Rockville, I think that Ralph Benson signing's solid. It's low risk. They don't have a DH. It's always nice when you don't have a DH and you can spend a pittance of money on someone that can play the position. He's still a good on-base bat and probably will continue to be that way for a little bit. This is another one where, again, if you have all of that freaking money, because he's got $47 million in budget space, why didn't he go after Ed Curry?
I mean, maybe he did and got. I don't know. I mean, this is another. I mean,
and Benson was a little later, so maybe he missed out. But then why not Guzman?
Yeah, I mean, he was another one of your guys because I know you ranted in a previous podcast about teams moving. This is another move. Maybe you know what I mean.
Well, maybe that's where it came from. That's true. That's a good point. So moving on to San Antonio.
Poor Mike, by the way. I mean, slightly off topic, but that dude is fucking snake bit.
I know, man.
I mean, I like I said, I know this is meant to be a free agency podcast, but god damn.
Right, well, and Wick's gone the whole year already. Imagine that team with, like, Ramirez and Wick on it, and now
Wick's gonna miss this year, too. I think he's got another 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, that's bad.
I mean, I'm gonna benefit, but man, that sucks.
Well, he did okay in free agency, though.
I mean, going back to the topic of the podcast.
The Jorge Rodriguez deal, the guy can't defend, but his other positional defense is so good that I think that's okay. That'll be an okay pickup. I think Witten, you know what? The one thing about Rodriguez is he did pay him quite a bit. I'm guessing he hopes to death that he opts out of this deal after the first 2 years because it's 10-5, then I think that's a 3 that I wrote, so 13-7-5.
10-5, 12-7, and then the opt-out.
And
then
15 starts to be
$15,500.
a lot for a corner outfielder that can't defend.
Yeah, and then he's got 2 teams. I mean, I don't see any way this deal gets to years 4 and 5. I mean,
no, and it could get ugly. I mean, the third year will be ugly if he's there. If he doesn't opt out, that third year will be ugly. But in the meantime, he's a pretty good he's one of the better on base guys in the league, and that'll help out San Antonio because that's a tough, park to hit in, and on base plays everywhere. That's not like a park dependent stat. Guys that get on base, they get on base wherever they go.
Yep. Especially guys like Rodriguez that do not strike out.
Right, exactly, and that's those are he's got a similar stadium situation to what I look at. I look at those guys. Brian Witten, I think it's a nice low exposure deal. He's not paying a lot for his DH. I think maybe he could have gone after one of the other guys instead.
I would rather pay Guzman than Witten. That's just me.
I could see that too. I think poor Frank Thomas. I think Frank Thomas is going to bounce back because San Antonio is hard to hit, and I don't think that's years as bad as we saw it was going to be, or bad as it looked. But I don't think Witten's a bad deal. I think Jose Cisneros, that was a nice flyer on a pitcher to see if you can get something out of him. I don't know why he got Juan Fernandez. I don't know where Fernandez isn't a bad player, but he's a cruddier version of Jorge Rodriguez. And I don't know what he didn't spend a lot. I think it's $3 million or something, $3.5 million.
Let's see, I've got it up right now. It's 4 for the first year, 3 for the next 2, and then 5 for a team option.
Right, but that's just $3 to $4 million that's gone every year because that guy's going to ride the pine. Like I don't.
Well, and he and Rodriguez are almost the exact same player.
Right.
Why? I mean, I get signing one. Why sign them both?
And you can't play 2 corner outfielders like that. And I think he has enough. He's got someone else on his team that's going to play the other corner outfield position, and he's got a center fielder. So I don't really know, unless he was accidentally bidding on both and didn't mean to get both of them. But then that's just kind of one of those oops mistakes you can't make.
Yeah, and that's because I don't think he was going to get outbid for. You know what I mean? I don't think there was a bidding war for either of those guys.
Right. But it was an okay free agency. It wasn't. Well, there might have been for Rodriguez. I wonder if that's how he got so high. But there definitely wasn't a bidding war on Juan Fernandez. But it's an okay free agency. It's not terrible. It's got a little ugly to it, but it's okay.
Well, as we just discussed, he's got money, he's got budget, and he's got fan interest. So
right. Seattle did not have the best of free agencies, largely I think because of Luis Espinosa. He's old. I mean, that's the big problem here. He's paying him $15 million a year roughly until he's going from old and already showing some works to super old. If looking at the timing of this one, it seems like the classic overpay on I think that's you missed out on the guy you wanted and you got this guy instead.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he and a guy we're going to talk about in a few minutes in iChart have similar deals.
Right.
And
and
similar deals, similar age. iChart's a little more money, but the contract is structured way better.
Right, and Espinosa has been a phenomenally good, one of those kind of, you don't hear his name, but a very good starter for New Orleans for a long time. But he's 34 now, and he has lost some stuff, and he's lost some movements. And while this could be okay this year, it's gonna get ugly. And that's, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong for Nathan's sake, but I think that one will get ugly. I actually like the other deals. I think the Fred Hernandez is a good. It's a lot of money, but this guy, it's a short deal. He's got an option built in there for next year. He had a down year last year, but this is a dude that is 37 and hasn't declined a bit. And 2 years ago was a 5 WAR player, and the year before that was 4, and the year before that was 4.5. I mean, I think he could turn this around a little bit and be a nice player for him.
Yeah, I mean, what is it's a 1 year? Is it 1 year with an option? Yeah, I mean that's. The only question is that's the type of deal you sign if you're ready to contend right now.
Right.
Do we think Seattle's in that position?
No, I think Seattle's on their way down, but I don't think Nathan likes to lose. So, and the same thing with this Espinosa deal, right? Like, Is that really the time to make that deal?
Yeah, that's a deal where you sign if you're a team that you're there, you need one piece.
Right.
Because Hernandez can be that piece on that team, but I don't think Seattle's that team.
Right. I can't decide what I think of the Owen Stark signing. The guy can play third base. We know that. $3.2 million for a starter is a pretty good price.
Yeah.
He'll steal a couple bases. He doesn't have horrible foot speed. And if he hits like he has since leaving Vancouver, I think it's an okay deal. The problem is he has, through his prime in Vancouver, he established a track record of just being a crappy hitter. So,
but is that a ballpark-induced thing, or is that
It could be, but Vancouver is almost as bad of a pitcher's park as I am. So I don't know.
I don't hate it because, like you said, 3.6 for a guy who could start at a fairly high-profile position at third is fine. I mean, and it's going to run through. If he takes the team option, it'll be 35 at the end of it. So I mean that's not the worst deal. I kind of like that one. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know. It could be good. It could be bad. Overall, it's kind of a meh free agency for Seattle. That Espinosa deal though is just that's gonna kill him. I think. I really do.
Like I said, I don't. This is one of those situations where I don't hate the signings. I just don't think they make sense in this team.
Well, no, you got a good point there. But it's not like I've done the same.
I mean, I think we've all done quite. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Maybe everybody sees the writing on the wall, but you.
Right. Wow, we're starting to run long, but hopefully we'll be able to wrap this up pretty soon here.
Well, two of the 4 teams left signed one player each. So
right, Twin Cities, Juice Breakwell unfortunately got hurt and hasn't been the same since he got hurt, and I think this is a bad deal. It's not a lot of money; it won't hurt him too much, but he's already old. They signed him for a couple years with an option, and he has not been the same pitcher since he got hurt. I think this is going to blow up on him.
Yeah, but I mean, again, this is a team that thinks they're in contention. They got a lot of young guys, so
they are in contention. I think there were so many relievers in the $2 to $3 million range, and that's the one you come up with. That's the thing about this that you could have got someone else probably. Valencia, amazingly, I think had a pretty good free agency, and I say amazingly because Lee's just kind of been here and kind of not been here for a while now. But they got a bunch of flyers on cheap guys, and some of those guys are going to win. I mean, Billy Wise, his ratings are okay. He's never done much, but he only paid him a little bit of money. Jesus Paz, how do you get that guy for $1.97 million? I mean, it's only a year, but maybe you could sign him to an extension. He's been a garbage starter, but again, you can give him a shot. Donald Foster's an okay player. Got him for a reasonable amount. I think that Ray Castillo contract could end up being really good. Again, he only spent $1.2 million on him. The one where I thought he did really well was the other former New Orleans guy, was Jose Ortiz. He's 30. He's only got him guaranteed for his 30, 31, and 32 age seasons. He was cheap because he shit the bed last year. But before that, I mean, the guy was better than league average starter.
That's pretty much that's a 3-year deal because I don't see Lee picking up those options.
Right.
And I mean that's you can tell the way it's structured. Yeah, a $3.5 million raise. I don't think so. I mean that's right. A 3-year deal masquerading as a 5-year deal.
And this free agency had iChart, it had 2 or 3 guys who were decent starters, and then it had a bunch of number 4s and 5s. And this is one of those guys who has a chance to be a decent starter, still. He has lost a point to stuff, but if he was low 7 or low 8 and went to high 7, he might last year could have just been a fluke, and he might that could end up being a really nice deal.
I like the Ortiz deal. I don't like the rest of them as much as you do, just because they're 1-year deals with no options.
You're killing me on the structure of these things. I mean, you're pointing out a good thing with deal structure. Why not throw an option on those? Why take a flyer on a guy for a year?
I mean, I get it if you're a team that's in contention and you know what I mean? You don't have you have guys coming up, or you have, you know what I mean. You just need them for this year, and that's it. But a team like Valencia, they're not in contention. They're not going to win anything this year.
No, but you make a really strong point too, right? Tack some options on there. If the player turns into something, you can either keep them and get some value, or flip them and get some value, and that's the right move.
And I mean, like for a guy like Fred Hernandez, I don't think the deal makes sense for Seattle, but if you want to sign Fred Hernandez for 1 year because he's 50 years old at this point, and you know what I mean, he probably doesn't have much left. Yeah, that's fine. But for some of these guys that are like in their late 20s, early 30s, tack a couple options on there because they can still be useful.
Yeah, no, that's really strong. I don't often look at things that way, so it's nice to have that other opinion here because that's a really, really strong point. Vancouver, I think, had a tremendous free agency. They got the eye chart deal. I can't believe the guy signed for that. $16 million, maybe a lot, but like he's going to be probably fine this year, and if he's not, he's off the books. And
I mean, the buyout's $3 million for each of those 2 years, so it's not as great as it looks, but I still say that probably is the best contract of free agency.
Yeah, it's really. I didn't think you would be able so when I had the lead on him, I had him like on a 5-year deal where I had to guarantee like 3 of those years, or at least 2 of them. So to have him for only 1 guaranteed year is tremendous, and the price isn't too bad. I mean, compare that to Eduardo Lopez and Correa from a couple years ago.
God! Well, yeah. I mean, those contracts were insane. I mean, just flat out. Especially because one of them, I forget which one, is the same age as Ramirez is now.
Exactly, and the same thing with Frank Thomas, right? Like, I think he's better than his numbers in San Antonio were last year. I think he'll bounce back some, although Vancouver's another hitter's park, or pitcher's park.
I was going to say, I think the ballpark might contain little hurt there a little bit, pun intended.
Right, but again, nice. Another great deal, right? Like the buyouts again are a little bit there, but these are only 1 guaranteed year. I mean, these aren't long-term moves, but they're great for Vancouver for right now. They don't hurt him for the future.
Well, and those are flippable deals too. If somebody comes to him, if somebody has a pitching or needs a quick bat, he can flip those and get something good for him.
Right. Or if he doesn't need them next year, but they played well this year, right? Those are. Yeah.
Those are 2. I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and say, as far as looking at just the free agency part of the offseason, there's your winner.
Yeah, I hate saying Brett wins anything. So
I know, but that's why you got an unbiased observer from the other half of the league here.
No, they're good deals. We'll wrap up with Yellow Springs. I think they made a nice little late bid on Francisco Flores, who's a decent player. Got him for a reasonable price for a year, and then he broke his ankle.
I mean, that's what
he'll
be back for the second half of the season, but yeah, that's just bad luck.
That's just what happened. So we were going to kind of get into what we thought about. So we think Vancouver had a really good free agency. I think Long Beach might end up having a really good free agency. It's just tough to tell at this point. Omaha had a good free agency. Who else did we think we liked a lot?
Yeah, my two I think clearly ahead of the pack were Omaha and Vancouver. I'm not as high on Long Beach as you are, although again, I think Lane's going with the philosophy of sign enough guys and some of them will work.
Yeah, he could end up having a bad free agency. Maybe he has like the most potentially good or bad free agency.
He's got some high variance guys in there. I mean, I think Vancouver and to a lesser extent Omaha got the more you get what you pay for type guys.
Yeah. I think the teams that hurt themselves are I think Edmonton hurt themselves just because they didn't do anything. It's just not doing anything hurt yourself. I think New Orleans, I'm just worried about the price on all 3 of those guys. They're not bad deals. I just wonder, again, I hate to doubt Jim because he's better than I am. He's been doing this forever and he wins almost every. The only reason he didn't win last year is he got destroyed by injury. I think Huntsville's free agency didn't make any sense.
Des Moines was interesting. We talked about that one.
I don't know. Well, Cantu, right? It's the Cantu deal. The Lopez deal I thought was fine.
Yeah. Well, in Louisville, we kind of talked about with the 2 DHs.
I don't think he hurt himself. I just don't. it's just odd. Like
Yeah, I mean,
he'll make
I
something
don't
out
hate
of
the
it.
deals in a vacuum, but when you sign both of them to the same team, why?
Right. I think the one team, interestingly, I only saw one oh shit signing in this whole free agency, really, and I think that's Seattle's Luis Espinoza. Just where you just look at it and go, that's going to end poorly. Um, was there anybody else that we thought was that?
I mean, I less money, but I don't like that Cantu signing for.
Yeah, yeah, but at least you're not. At least it's not with twice the value. I'm getting hoarse. I have officially my throat hurts now. We've been talking about this for an hour and 20 minutes. But I think that was kind of fun. We got through all those teams. Do you have any other thoughts? Anything else you wanted to add?
I mean, it should be an interesting season because the teams we talked about that did well in free agency aren't the teams that are. I don't think any of those teams were in the playoffs last year.
No, and it was a weird year, right? Like it was a weird free agency. Like most of the teams stood pat. It was bizarre how many teams didn't need to do anything in free agency or couldn't because they were up against the cap. I don't have much free agent turnover. Like I build my team to maybe need a piece or two every year, but I know that's not the case for a lot of guys. But
it also, I mean, we talked briefly about Atlantic City last season with those two big pitching signings, but those two guys they were better than the best player on this market. They would have been 1-2 in this class.
Yeah, I think the market determined a lot of it, but there were a lot of teams that were also fairly complete, bringing back a lot of players. Let's see if we can find. I think again, if you're looking for the team that propelled themselves from a middle of the pack team, or a contender that helped themselves, Vancouver, right? Like, is there anyone else that was a contending team that made a big signing that helps?
I mean, I know you like Long Beach. I mean, they're in contention.
I think they could have. I don't necessarily love it, but I think they could have. These are all my division. Calgary, I think that made a signing. It's not huge, but it could end up being a nice thing for them. All right, well, I guess that about wraps this up. I hope everybody listening had fun. Thanks to Randy for showing up and helping me out with this. I had a good time talking about it. I hope you did too, man.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
All right, later, everybody.